Morning, everyone. A significant investigation team has been operating for the past several months in SAPOL. SAPOL has treated this investigation as a high priority, and we've been drawing on resources from across SAPOL and as well as gaining support from our partners in the Joint Counter-Terrorism team. This has culminated in the arrest of an 18-year-old man on Wednesday evening who appeared before the Magistrates Court in Adelaide yesterday. He has been remanded in custody and will appear in court at a future date. The investigation is complex and we take these alleged allegations and offences very seriously. As you would appreciate, because the matter is before the court, there are limited details that I can share with you. Can I stress that community safety was at the forefront of every decision that was made throughout this investigation, and we have worked with the Education Department to ensure the ongoing safety of children, the school community and the broader South Australian community. I'd also like to acknowledge the work that's been undertaken by our partners and by the team in SAPOL who have been working hard on this investigation over those several months. I'll hand over to the Premier and then I'm happy to take questions.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. On May the 2nd, on Friday afternoon, I received a phone call from the Police Commissioner inviting me to receive a briefing on a top priority matter that SAPOL was currently undertaking an investigation into. I met with the Police Commissioner on the evening of the May the 2nd and was briefed on probably the most complex and significant case I've ever received a briefing on in my capacity as either Premier or previously as Police Minister. The nature of the work that has been undertaken by South Australian Police in this instance is hard, I think, for most South Australians to comprehend. This was a major investigation. It was technically extremely complicated, and men and women within South Australian Police were literally spending countless nights and days working on this matter, and in each and every step of the way seeking to ensure that community safety was at the heart of every decision they made and the way they went about executing their duties. On behalf of the South Australian Government and more broadly the people of South Australia, I want to extend my praise and gratitude to all the men and women that have worked on this case tirelessly, and I literally mean tirelessly. I also want to acknowledge the nature of the way that SAPOL has conducted this investigation in terms of collaboration. This has been a huge team effort, SAPOL leading the effort, but there have been other agencies from across our country that have provided assistance as well. Here at home in South Australia, the Department of Education have obviously been central to this endeavour, acting on the advice of SAPOL all the way through, along with the Department of Health playing a critical role as well. But there's also been collaboration at the federal level, including with ASIO, which speaks to the seriousness in which SAPOL took up this challenge and have been able to deliver an outcome in terms of an arrest in the last 24 hours. The arrest itself required a very substantial operation, and there were men and women who put themselves in harm's way to be able to execute that arrest without fear or favour, and they deserve great credit as well. Just to give people a bit of a sense of the size and the scale of this operation, over 100 people within SAPOL were dedicated to this effort, seeking to ensure that the people of our state remain safe. I can't imagine how all-consuming it is when you are working on an investigation of this size and complexity, just thinking every single second of the day, what more can we do? What angle can we pursue in order to be able to seek to execute an arrest of the nature that we've seen most recently? That work is extraordinary and it deserves high praise. In terms of the Glenunga High School community, this is a beautiful community and they have been steadfast and resilient, and they can take a lot of comfort in the knowledge that SAPOL, in conjunction with other organisations like the Department of Education, at every single step of the way we're making sure that community safety inform their judgment about what to do and when. And I think that thoughtful, in many respects clinical and considered way they've made those judgments has been vindicated by the events we've seen in the last 24 hours. And that takes great fortitude, and again, I can't thank them enough. Often in policing, we see a lot of things happen in an instant that gets a lot of attention, but the nature of policing is changing in the modern world. It is becoming far more complicated. Crimes today, particularly where there is digital elements to it, have great sophistication and technicality, which means that the burden placed on police in terms of resources and on the people that do the work is very, very high indeed. Modern policing is becoming more complex, more resource intensive, and often people don't necessarily see what goes on behind the scenes. But to have up to 100 people working on this matter really speaks to the absolute dedication that SAPOL throw at these types of matters, and we've seen a result come out of that, and I can't thank them enough.
Premier, can we ask whether there's any further threat to the South Australian community in connection with this?
Well, that might be a question best in the first instance responded to by the Commissioner.
In terms of community safety, as we said, that has been at the heart of every decision we've made. The matter is before the courts now. There is a person remanded in custody. The school community is safe. We say that we have mitigated the threat significantly, and we're very comfortable that the school's open today, and that we've been working with the Education Department.
When did the school first become aware of this?
The school first became aware of it in the early stages of the investigation, in fact, very early. So we've had an ongoing open relationship with them. They've been very cooperative. We have shared a lot of information with them to the level that we were able to, and they have been very cooperative.
You said that ASIO was involved as well as the Joint Counter-Terrorism team. Will you allege that this arrested man was planning acts of terrorism?
The charges are before the court. There is no terrorism charges. We utilise the Joint Counter-Terrorism partners because what that does is it brings capability to our operation. It unlocks a lot of powers that are not necessarily available to us in state-based circumstances. So that enhanced our capacity in this investigation.
Have bomb-making materials been seized from the home?
I haven't been updated on what's been seized from the home as yet, but the scene was being processed as of yesterday and today, so that matter will be ongoing.
And why did police seek a suppression order on his identity?
The suppression order was sought by the police and the DPP on the basis that this is an ongoing investigation. Obviously, that would be continuously reviewed. That would have been our view, and at the appropriate point, we would have sought to have the suppression lifted. We understand the decision was made by the court, and we obviously will move forward on our investigation regardless of that.
The Premier mentioned that your officers put themselves in harm's way to execute the arrest. What does that mean? How did they put themselves in harm's way?
Because the matter is before the court, I won't go into the details, but it is correct to say that there was a personal courage that was shown by police officers involved in effecting the arrest. And, that has to be recognised, but in the fullness of time we could talk about it more.
Do you believe the team's working with others?
At this stage we are focusing on this individual, and that person has been arrested.
If he was demanding payment by May 13 and the arrest was executed on May 14, was that really leaving it down to the wire? Were you concerned that an attack would happen at that May 13 deadline?
So we were continuously conducting a risk assessment. We were satisfied that the timing was appropriate under the circumstances and that we were mitigating any risk by the methodologies that we were using at that time.
Do you believe that this year's Fringe and this year's Gather Round were ever under threat, or were the allegations relating to maybe next year's major event?
So we work with all event organisers, and particularly the Fringe, Gather Round, Adelaide Oval, all those major activities, and we continuously do risk assessments, and our police involved are aware of any pertinent threats to those events if they're occurring at that point in time, and they are managed effectively. What people wouldn't be aware of is sometimes our operational cadence or our stance at an event is increased, and people would not be aware of that. So that's an ongoing part of our business as usual with major events.
So were there risk mitigation factors at this year's Fringe and Gather Round that the public may not have been aware of?
I won't go into the operational responses to that in terms of what was occurring, but it's a constant thing that we do with major events in terms of risk assessment, whether it's a threat from as you're alluding to, from an allegation in this case or from any other threats that we may be aware of.
Will security measures remain in place at Glenunga High School?
So for the ongoing time, yes, there will be. The police security officers will continue to be present.
Can I ask, I don't know who's best placed to answer, what was the involvement of the health department?
So we reached out to health in regards to information about the allegations of food contamination. So we were able to work with them in terms of understanding what that might look like, and if there were any reports how that could occur or unfold. So it was a close working relationship in relation to that aspect.
The Premier was involved from May 2. How long before that did the investigation start?
The investigation's been ongoing for several months.
Could you clarify, was there any radical political or religious ideology behind his actions?
None known at this time.
Do you know whether he's been interacting with anybody else, any other individuals in regards to this?
So this is an ongoing investigation in the matters before the court. We are comfortable that we have contained the threat at the moment, and obviously the investigation is ongoing because for the matters before the court.
How, I mean, in terms of the major investigations we've had in the state, where would you put this one? Is this the biggest police operation you've been involved in?
It's a significant, it ranks up there with a lot of major investigations. I mean, it's difficult to compare this to other like major crime investigations, which have been very complex and have taken a massive amount of resources, but it is certainly one of the most significant. Yes.
May I ask you a couple of unrelated questions?
Sure.
Firstly, we've seen two nasty car crashes north of the city this morning. Is the road safety message during National Road Safety Week is not getting across? Look,
it's always a challenge. We're consistently out there, working with our community, trying to say, take it slow, take it easy. I don't know the exact circumstance of the cause of the crashes today. Obviously, we're concerned. Major Crash have attended one of those scenes, and that is obviously under investigation. But it's a continuous challenge, road safety. But if you look at the stats over probably the last 10 years, you would see that there has been a significant response to our calls and our enforcement and education of road users in terms of the numbers of lives lost on the roads. However, as we often say, it doesn't matter how many lives are lost. The number should be zero.
What details can you provide about the two-horse crash?
Just understand it was a car and a truck, and that a person was airlifted to hospital for treatment. I don't know the details of the cause. It's still under investigation.
Can I ask you about Assistant Commissioner Vendito? I understand he's on paid leave. Is that voluntary paid leave, or was he asked or forced to take leave?
SAPOL put out a statement last week. I won't be adding anything further to that.
And I've just got a question for the Premier about farmers. They're at breaking point, and why won't you declare South Australia in drought to help them access assistance?
No, just to be clear about that, back in 2013, I think it was, the Commonwealth, in conjunction with states, put in place a regime to end formal drought declarations in order to be able to get assistance. So there has been no regime for formal drought declarations, but I'm happy to make it clear, as I have repeatedly, there is a severe drought in the state of South Australia at the moment, and the irony isn't lost on me that yesterday I spent a bit of time getting briefed and contemplating options before the state regarding floods in the north of our state, yet in the south we're seeing some of the driest conditions and one of the worst droughts on record. In fact, for some parts of the states, over a 12-month period, we've never seen less rainfall, which is exactly why the state government has invested tens of millions of dollars into a drought assistance package that we developed in conjunction with people representing farmers across industries, whether it be livestock, broadacre agriculture, grain production, dairy farming, viticulture, we've sat down with all those industries and crafted a comprehensive package, and that of course was announced a couple of weeks ago on back of the package that we announced, on top of the package that we announced in November last year. So we continue to monitor the situation. The only thing I've wanted more than the arrest over the last couple of weeks, the only thing I've wanted as much as the arrest that SAPOL made in the last 24 hours is rain. The state desperately needs rain. In the meantime, state government is investing tens of millions of dollars, but the most powerful thing that any ordinary South Australian can do is reach out to someone that you know that's suffering because of the drought. Don't underestimate the value of that. In fact, one thing that forms a big component of the drought assistance package is investment in mental health services. But sometimes, you know, no matter what government does, it's hard to replicate what a family member or a friend can do, just picking up the phone and asking someone on the land how they're going, because that can count for a lot.
Is the drought assistance package enough?
Well, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the state's history. You know, we've allocated a lot of money to this, but you know, money doesn't fix every problem. That's the challenge. If it did, we'd put more into it. The one thing beyond solidarity and community support we need right now is rain, and no one can make that happen, but we're all praying for it.
Thank you, everyone.
So, I don't know whether you can answer this, and it refers back to the earlier thing you said, the personal courage that you were referring to regarding the arrest. Can you provide any more details about whether an officer's life may have been in danger?
I think the circumstances were courageous and there was personal risk. That was a decision that they made, obviously a considered decision. I think it's difficult to say if their life was in danger, but the matter is before the court and that hasn't been a charge that's been laid.
Was he arrested at his home address?
No, he wasn't.
And the arrest was definitely May 14?
Wednesday evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.